Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today's video is going to be kind of interesting. 8 character deaths that ripped out my heart and utterly destroyed me. So I'm going to go over them in detail, and I'm going to have some honorable mentions. Most of these are books. Some of these are TV shows that have books that I haven't read yet, and others are just TV shows or movies that impacted me so much that I had to mention them in the list. But I did try to pick things that had lists and stuff, had books and stuff. I am going to mention some honorable mentions later on. So let's get right into this. So first of all, this will have spoiler alerts for the following: Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas, Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, Gate to Kagoshima by Poppy Karaoke, Star Wars Revenge of the Sith by George Lucas for the movie and Matthew Stover for the novelization, Avatar: The Last Airbender, the TV show, Star Wars Rebels, the TV show, Immortal by me. And I'll talk about Survivor, but I'm not going to spoil it, so that's going to be in one of the honorable mentions. And then for the honorable mentions, I'm going to talk about Vampire Diaries, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, the movie Titanic, and I'm also going to talk about Assassin's Creed 3, which I forgot to add to my list here. So Assassin's Creed 3, the video game, which I do have a book for. So there is a book version of that. So anyways, let's get started. So also, if you don't want spoilers, then click away. You have been warned. If you don't care, that's fine. So we're going to be counting down. And the reason why I'm counting down, all of these deaths that are mentioned here, did make me emotional. I did feel things, and they are very impactful. So even though I'm counting down, that doesn't mean the ones at the top of the list are like the least or not good or anything like that. Like, these are still the top 8. And so I'm counting down from the least to the most impactful, but the ones on the least here that I'm going to talk about shortly are still very impactful. So, number 8. So number 8 is Keshiro from Gate to Kagoshima by Poppy Karaoke, one of my author friends. So this book is about a woman who travels back in time. Also, I wanted to mention before I get started, I did do a version of this for my social media. I have it on my phone. I haven't published or released it yet. I'll probably do that after this video. That version I did spontaneously and kind of sparked this whole thing. So from that video, I made this comprehensive list, which is my blog, also a blog post that I'll be posting soon, and this video, so I'm going more in depth. So if you've already seen that video by chance, still watch this one. I'm going into a lot more detail in this one. So I also tend to go on tangents, as you've noticed. So anyways, number 8 is the character Keshiro from Gate to Kagoshima by Poppy Karaoke, my really good author friend. So this book is about a woman who travels back in time to the time of feudal Japan in samurai times. It's like the late 18... It's 128 years back in time during the Satsuma Rebellion. I don't remember the exact date. It's 18 something. So, but it's during the Satsuma Rebellion, which is a real historical time period. So this is like fictional characters, fictional plot lines set in a real historical time period. So there are real historical figures in here. She writes it very historically accurate. And so she goes back in time, falls in love with one of the samurai there, a fictional character named Kechiro. And so anyone who knows this time period and knows the history and also knows like Japanese samurai style of, stories and romances and stuff. Tragedies are very common and romanticized, so you kind of see it coming. And if you knew the history, this is the fall of the samurai. So in this final battle during the Satsuma Rebellion, I'm pretty sure all or most of the samurai that fought in that battle did actually die. So the question as I was reading became, is he going to be in that final battle? Is he going to die? Are they going to get away together? Are they going to, all that stuff? So that all combined made me realize that it was probably not going to end well. I was really enjoying it. I really enjoyed Keshiro's character. He was kind of the epiphany, that's not the right word. He is the equivalent of what a true samurai is, and I loved his character. He was honorable and so well written by Poppy. She's a really great author. And so getting to fall in love with him through the eyes of the main character was also very, very neat. So even though it was like really tragic, really sad, and I mourned him, and it was really sad to know that he died in that final battle, it's also kind of bittersweet in a way because his character is a samurai who did not want to abandon his men, and he could not bear the thought of leaving or escaping or not fighting in that battle. And so it was like one of those tragic things. I forgot a very important character in this list just now. I'll have to throw that in my list in a minute. So it was like it went along with his character, if that makes sense, because it's like he wouldn't have been able to live with himself if he had abandoned his men, and it was like the coward's way out kind of thing. So you're kind of like it's meant for him to die, but it's still kind of sad. And then on top of that, she made an ending that kind of had a twist because you're dealing with time travel and all that stuff. So the twist was meant to kind of lessen the blow and make it more bittersweet than anything else, but I didn't really like the ending didn't do it for me per se. Still really good and really well written, but it just didn't work that way for me personally. And so it was still tragic. I still mourned him. And so it was still a loss. I still felt his pain, and it's still a really good book, really gorgeous book. And I think she's actually getting ready to publish her second one soon. And not a follow-up to this one, but like another story about different characters. But this was a really, really good story, and I loved Ketro's character. Number 7 is Liam from Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So, you were warned. Spoiler alerts. So, when Liam's dragon started dying, it ripped my heart out. I was sobbing, and I was reading, and I was crying, and it's not just his death that makes this death so dramatic. I actually went back and reread the scene in order to write my blog post and kind of review for this video and stuff like that. It was brutal. So his devastation to save his dragon and then Violet's desperation to save him is just like there are so many tears. So I was actually rereading the scene as I was writing the article and, like I said, preparing for all of this, and I started crying again, like getting teary-eyed and everything again. Because Violet was like carrying Liam, trying to get him to his dragon, because his dragon was fighting the wyvern. So not only was that brutal, and like the wyvern was like eviscerating him, so it was like really, really brutal. And you're like, the dragon's death alone is like really sad. But they went down, and so they landed, and so she's trying to drag him to his dragon so that he could say goodbye. Because when their dragon dies, they die. So he only has minutes left to live, and she's not strong enough, and she can't get him there. So that makes the whole situation even worse. And then another part that got to me too, on top of all of this, is when she asks her dragon, like, I don't know what to do, tell me what to do. And he's like, and her dragon responds to her in their mind-to-mind communication, there's nothing you can do, Silver One. My chest just tightened. I can't. And then the line that broke us all, y'all know what I'm about to say. It's been my honor. That's the last line he says to her. I'm still just, Liam. We will never be over Liam. Like, just Liam. So that's number 7. This is a really sad video. Okay, moving on. Number 6 is actually a TV show, so not a book. There are comics though, so technically speaking, I'm still in the ballpark. Jet from Avatar: The Last Airbender, specifically Book 2 Earth, obviously Volume 4, the episode Lake Laogai. I had to mention this even though it's not technically a book, just because this impacted my childhood. I grew up with this series, and I cannot tell you enough how much this series impacted me as a person and as an author, as a writer, creator, storyteller. Sorry. A lot of the characters and inspiration and just all of that stuff, like, it impacted so much for me. So it utterly shook me because, number one, this is a kid's show. It's designed for kids. Not necessarily like little kids, but it's a really, really good show. Adults can enjoy it, and like it still holds up today. And it's one of those where they take it, like, I feel like sometimes kid shows can like not realize how much kids can actually grasp and understand, so they kind of keep it dumb, kind of like kid level. This was like, it's a really solid show with really good writing, character arcs, and all the plot lines and things. And so it had very serious themes. It had very serious topics that it dealt with in very good ways, and, you know, ways that kids could still understand. And it had really good character. So I loved Jet's character, and I didn't know he was going to come back in, because this was the time when we had caught up with the show and was watching it on TV once, like when it came on TV or whatever. And which also meant cliffhangers and waiting and lots of waiting. So when he came back in, I was like, oh my gosh, Jet's back in the show. And, you know, I was excited for him joining the gang and becoming a part of the team and what they were going to do with him in the future. I was looking forward to him and Katara being together. Like, I was so excited. So in like Lao Guy, when they find out that he's being brainwashed along with a bunch of other people, they break into the lake to find out what's going on, and they find out the tip of the iceberg for the corruption in Ba Sing Se, and there's the big epic fight. It was really good fight scene, as always. The fight scenes in this are based on like real martial arts, and the animation is like phenomenal. And he dies. He actually dies, and it was like, I could not believe it. Like, this was before Star Wars for me, so I was just like, at least I think it was before Star Wars. This is really breaching in my childhood. But I was shocked. It shook me, because like, it was one of the first character deaths that I remember really impacting me. Maybe not like the first. I think Titanic maybe holds that record. Maybe. No, actually, there's another one I forgot. The more I talk, the more I forget. So we're going to mention that one. So it was one of the first that impacted me that deeply, especially because it was so shocking that it was in this show. But his death, like, there needed to be consequences for, like, the good guys had to take a hit, and it really, really showed the depth and the devastation of the corruption of Ba Sing Se and the Earth Kingdom. And so his death haunted me for years, like literal years growing up. Like, I am still not over his death, and I can watch that scene and still just, and it's done in like a really kind of like, you know, it's still a kid show, so it's not specific. It's definitely not brutal like Fourth Wing, but it's still just like, just really, really sad and impactful. So I'm going to go down. So another one that I'm going to spoil later on in my honorable mentions is The Patriot, which is a movie, and that has Mel Gibson in it. I don't know who created it or anything, but it's another movie I grew up with that I've got to mention impacted me. So we're going to talk about that one in my honorable mentions later. So yeah, that was number 6. So in reality, this is 8, and then like a gazillion more added to the end because there's too many. So number 5 actually is another TV show, but hear me out. Okay, so number 5 is Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. So it's a TV show, Star Wars TV show, again, designed for kids, but it's part of the Star Wars universe. After the show, there was this prequel book that was like took place before the show that I read and enjoyed, and I've also read his comic books. So there's a lot that I've read about Kanan. So yeah, this is A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller, forwarded by Dave Filoni, who created the show. So Kanan was my favorite character in the show, and he was like he actually is one of my favorite Jedi characters, and I feel like you have these characters like Qui-Gon Jinn, who are like what I consider to be like true Jedi, where they follow the will of the Force, and that doesn't necessarily fit into, like, Qui-Gon never really fit in with the council and their rules and the dogmatic view, not to quote Palpatine, but still. And so I feel like Kanan is one of those characters, kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, he didn't start off that way, but he kind of grew into a Qui-Gon type character where he follows the true will of the Force, I'm such a hick, the Force, and like learned about balance and things like that. And then the concept for me that like he was a Padawan who never completed his training. He went through Order 66. His master died in front of him. He had to run away. He had to go into hiding. The comic books really expanded on his backstory of how he had to like like live on the streets and kind of do a bunch of like, you know, back street kind of stuff in order to survive. And so by the time he meets Ezra in the show, he's never really finished his training. So now he's supposed to train this young kid that he doesn't know how to do that, and he doesn't think he can. And then his relationships with not only his Padawan Ezra, but everybody in the show, all the other characters, is so special. And his relationship with Hera, like, they are still one of my favorite couples of all time. I need to do an ultimate couple ranking. I did a book couple ranking, fantasy, romantasy couple ranking. I will update it when I finish Throne of Glass. But I need to do like just couples in general. That's going to be so much fun. Let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do that. Along with my favorite male characters and my favorite female characters. I did one a long time ago. So if you want me to do one of those, let me know. But anyways, they're one of my favorite couples. And so now, after the show is over, and it's been over for years, and I'm kind of older and everything else, like, I love how Kanan and Hera were like parents to this like little family. And so their adventures together and stuff. So in the TV show, again, designed for kids, in Star Wars, so Star Wars has some impactful deaths. Like, I need to rank Star Wars deaths, but it's like not quite expected in that particular show because it was geared toward children. But he like basically gave his life to rescue Hera when she was captured and stuff. And he gave his life to save Hera and Ezra because it would have taken them out. And I think Sabine was piloting the ship at the time too. So he like literally, he force pushes her backward. If I have the clip, I'll play it here, but he force pushes her backward and she's trying to get to him. That was so devastating, and I was shocked. And I kid you not, like, I went through the grief process with this character, and I actually went into denial. I was launched straight into denial for several episodes, and I was like, okay, it's intended for kids. It's going to be like Finn Rider from Tangled. They're going to bring him back. They're going to bring him back. So every episode after that, I was like, they're going to bring him back. And there was this one episode where Ezra goes to the world between worlds and they actually watch it happen. And I was like, this is it. They're going to bring him back. They're going to bring him back. He's not really dead. Until like they didn't. And I was like, oh, he's actually dead. Like, they're going to save him. They're going to save him. They didn't save him. So yeah, this one still, I can watch that clip and I just, it's brutal. And again, it does have this book. This is a really good Star Wars book if you guys are actually interested in Star Wars and you haven't read this book. It's actually really good. I think I enjoyed it. So I never did a review because that was before I did reviews on this channel. So I'm kind of wanting to reread this at some point. But yeah, so that's number 5. So number 4. Since we're talking about Star Wars, I'm specifically talking about Revenge of the Sith, which is episode 3. So the movie's obviously by George Lucas, and the novelization is written by Matthew Stover. So it's in the prequel trilogy, but it's got that book in there. So I'm specifically talking about both of those. So Star Wars, things from our childhood. I literally can't make this list without talking about Padme Amidala and also Anakin Skywalker from a certain point of view, because Vader kind of killed Anakin, and one could make an argument for that, and like emotionally, mentally, whatever you want to call it, like that's what was kind of happening. So for anyone who grew up with the originals, y'all probably knew that Padme was going to die. I grew up with the prequels. I did not know the originals existed. So I was devastated when she died. And I, like, again, kind of went into denial. And remember, I was young at the time. Like, I was really young at the time. So I, like, the fact that Anakin turned, the fact that Padme died, I could not, like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I kept thinking over and over, like, what if he didn't turn to the dark side? What if she didn't die? What if she actually survived? And, like, tons of like fan fictions in my head, and just I obsessed with it. And also because I didn't know the originals existed, for me that was the end. Like, Revenge of the Sith was the end of the story, and it was the most tragic story ever since Titanic for me as a kid. Like, kid me was like, this is horrible, this is a horrible ending, like, you know. So when I found the originals, it was like, oh my gosh, there's more. Like, there's actually hope here. But it was just so sad. And like, it was just like, I couldn't process. And I obsessed. Like, the amount of obsession I had for the prequels growing up, specifically Clone Wars at number 2 and Revenge of the Sith number 3, I cannot express to you guys the level of obsession. Like, however much you think I'm obsessed based on your interactions with me or watching these videos, like, multiply that by like 100 and you're still probably not even close. So that's number 4. This book is also really heavy, by the way. So number 3 is actually The Red Wedding, in Game of Thrones, the TV show, and also it is in this book, A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. I have not read this book, but I did watch the TV show, so I'm still gonna hold the book up and talk about it. I wanted to mention the book too because it's like the source of it, and George R.R. Martin is the author. So an honorable mention real quick before I get into The Red Wedding is probably Ned Stark's death in Game of Thrones season 1. I don't think any of us really saw that coming because, at least those of us who watched the TV show and didn't read the books, I don't know about the books, because I remember thinking like that he would get saved, and even then it was like after he died, it was like, okay, he was the dad, the parent died, so the kids are gonna have to fight. Rob's gonna have to like take up this mantle of like running their house, and you know, with the help of his mom. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But the Red Wedding, like, I'm actually pretty sure The Red Wedding is going down as one of the biggest twists in TV and book history. So they were there for the wedding, the host betrays them, and everything goes horribly wrong. And it was difficult, and like, it was actually painful to watch. Like, it's hard to sit through and watch that. Like, Robb Stark's pregnant wife, like, they're gonna have a baby, everything was happy, she dies in his arms, and obviously the baby is dead, and then you're watching and you're thinking, okay, she's dead, he'll get out of this, it'll just be a tragic situation that he'll have to overcome. And then his mother was so desperate to save him, to get him out alive, just like begging and demanding that he be let go, and then he doesn't, and they both die. And they were main characters, like prominent characters. It shook like me, like the world, like, oh my gosh, it's still too soon. It was one of the most tragic scenes, I think, like in probably a book and in like a TV show, like a mainstream one at least, because it was just like, it was horrible. It was horrible. I am still not over that. Like, it was rough. So speaking of rough, we're getting really, really tragic here. So number 2 is actually Sam from Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. So if I can find a clip, I will play it for you so you can enjoy the tragic and the tears too.
My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not afraid. My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not afraid. My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not afraid. My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not.
My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not afraid. I can still read the book and listen to the audio that somebody made about it and just sob and cry and cry. I think Sam's name, like, I can actually think of his name or talk about his name and my chest just like tightens. This is definitely the most dramatic character death I've ever read in a book before. And the only reason why it's not number 1 is because number 1 is like real history and also branched out into multiple different things for me. We'll get into that when we get to number 1, and I obsessed over that one. But it's one of the most dramatic ones I've ever read in my life. The way that she wrote it, Sarah J. Maas, like, how Selena was like pacing in the room waiting for him, wondering why he hadn't gotten back yet, you know, when she heard about the death, and, you know, when she saw his body and saw what he had been through and kind of like the implied like torture that he endured before his death, when, you know, she was crying over him, the grief, knowing how he died, thinking about how he was brutally tortured and died in such a horrific way. Like, I genuinely don't think I have mourned for a character as much as I've mourned for Sam. And I'll never ever get over Sam. Like, if he's mentioned in any of the books, like as I'm reading, like he has been periodically a few times, it's just gut wrenching. And and then somebody, so the audio it wasn't actually in, because we weren't in his perspective. We found out afterward that he had died. So, but like, there was a scene in Assassin's Blade where she was admitting to him that she was afraid, and he told her that what he does when he's afraid, he always says, "My name is Sam Cortland, and I am not afraid." Fast forward to when this happened, and some male narrator on the internet decided to record as if Sam said that, but the voice getting progressively weaker and softer, and till it cuts off. And he's dead. I just got chills. And you realize that when he was dying, when he was being tortured, wondering whether Selena was going to come save him or not, he repeated that to himself over and over again to stay brave. Whew, this is a lot more hard than I thought. To stay brave. And eventually he'd said it until he just stopped because he died and she never saved him. So that's number 2. Next. So this next one, I'm using my book Immortal because my book actually does feature it in there. But I'm not like trying to self-plug or anything. It's just the situation. So number 1 is the Shinsengumi, and this is from many different things. So I first saw this in an anime called Hakowiki. It's got a lot of different names, a lot of Japanese names, and it has so many branch offs, I don't know what's what. So you can Google it, it'll probably pop up for you. I think it was a game that turned into an anime TV show that then turned into an animated movie, like 2 of them, that then turned back into a live action TV show of season 1. It also had several like bonus episodes and a prequel spinoff, and I mean, it's like, it went crazy. So, but I think I saw the anime TV show first and then played the game and then somehow followed all the spinoffs, and then I obsessed over it and I learned about the real history, and I started researching the real history behind the Shinsengumi and the fall of the samurai, and eventually I wrote it into my book Immortal. So I'm gonna kind of talk about each one of these, not really each one in detail, but like that also is what sparked my interest in feudal Japan and in samurai, and also that's how I ended up writing both Immortal and my other book, Samurai, here. So because of this, the story of the Shinsengumi. So the only reason why this is actually first before Sam, even though I've like mourned him and will probably, and he was the most dramatic character death I've ever read, is because of how much I obsessed over the Shinsengumi and their story. So it's just like how they fought for what they believed in and for each other, like the brotherhood aspect of like the Shinsengumi and like all they tried to do, how they were protecting Kyoto from all of these Ronin, how they were betrayed. They just kept losing battle after battle after battle, and the war resulted ultimately in the end of the Way of the Samurai. Like, that way just died off. And then you have also what happened in real history, but like when I started off, you had how it was portrayed in the anime. And like, then when you find out like the real history behind how they died, and then how I wrote it in Immortal to be historically accurate, it's just, it's devastating. It really is. Like, Hijikata's death, how he survived to the very bitter end of all of this and fought and fought and fought and fought and did whatever he could to try to keep the Shinsengumi alive and like serve, like, you know, the shogun and stuff. Kondo, the leader, how he stayed behind to give them a chance to get away. Soji, and how he was sick and he wanted to die in battle and he never got his wish. Like, he died in a sickbed. Harada, like especially in the anime Harada, how it's portrayed where he died kind of alone, and so he was he ended up working with his enemy or his rival, but like they worked together against the bad guys, and so his enemy ended up being the one who was there for him in the end. And then in real life, how they couldn't win, like, and they fought and they died. They knew they were going to die and they fought anyway. I'm never, ever going to get over it. And also, I think I wrote it pretty dramatically, and it was hard to write, and it's been hard to read back. And yeah, so that's Immortal. So even though that was number 1, I do have some honorable mentions that honestly, even these honorable mentions are so good. They made me cry. They impacted my life. Like, they're still worth being a part of this list, and that's why they're in this video. Again, this will have spoilers for The Vampire Diaries, The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping, Titanic, Assassin's Creed 3, the video game, the TV show called C, The Patriot by Mel Gibson. So I don't have these in my hand. I do have some references, but I'll pop it up here. So Vampire Diaries is the TV show. I'm talking about the TV show specifically, although there is actually a book series by L.J. Smith I have not read yet. In the TV show, and I don't know how the books end, so keep that in mind, but in the TV show, at the very end of it, Stefan dies, and Damon was the one intending to give his life and ended up where Stefan did, and so that Damon could finally have like a happy life that he deserved. And it was really sad. It was very bittersweet because it was like he saved everybody, but like you kind of wish that Stefan had like lived to see the happy ending that everybody else gets, kind of. And like the brother relationship between him and Damon, and the fact that because I think Damon was still a vampire at the time, and he compelled mind controlled Stefan to leave him. So Stefan thought he was going to die, and Stefan was like crying and upset, and Damon was the one going to do the thing. And then later on found out that Stefan was actually on Vervain and the compulsion didn't work, and he was the one that gave his life anyway. So it was just really tragic and sad, and just so Game of Thrones again, so spoilers for Game of Thrones. Jon Snow's death, like in Game of Thrones, he technically lived, so he didn't die permanently, but we thought he was dead. Like, that was the end of a season, and so we had to wait and wait and wait. And I remember that clip. If I can find it, I will put it here, because this blew up all over the internet. Everybody was like watching this so much. There were so many theories. Like, they were watching like the change in lighting. Does that mean like there was a change in lighting in his eyes? And did that mean that he warged himself into one of the animals or something? Like, it was absolutely insane. It went nuts. It was so tragic because, like, again, you have the precedent of like the Red Wedding and Ned Stark dying in season 1, and then Robb Stark dying, and not Sansa, but the mom dying. And it's just like, so you're kind of expecting this to be it and him to be dead. I don't remember actually how he survives, because it's been a while since I've seen that season, but that whole period of waiting for the next season to find out what happened to Jon Snow was like horrible, because we thought he was dead. So I do actually have the cover and the book for this one. So I have the new covers for the Hunger Games series, which honestly, they're so pretty. I love these. But Rue's Death in the Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So obviously it's really sad, and the movie actually portrayed it really well too, where it was so sad and like you want to cry. She's a kid. Like, the fact that she is a little girl is just like, it's heart-wrenching. And then Katniss is mourning her and making the flowery grave, and like the reaction to the people back home having to watch her death, and the fact that like it's glorified and like televised by the Capitol. It's just so heart-wrenching and sad. And while we're talking about the Hunger Games, some other honorable mentions is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Again, spoiler alerts. I think his name is Ambert. It's the kid's name. It starts with an A. It is brutal. Like, the brutality, like, it was, I still felt, and I would have felt for him, but the fact that he is like, I can't remember the details, but he was like ripped apart, like the brutality of how he died, and then Haymitch's reaction afterwards, just doing everything he can to try to get to the kid, even though, you know, it's too late at that point. Like, it was hard to read. It was so sad. And then pretty much every other character in this book that Haymitch loses just shatters me, like absolutely shatters me. Haymitch's story, this book just shattered me. So that's definitely worth mentioning. So obviously as a kid, Jack's death from Titanic. I mean, if you haven't watched it by now, you know. This probably should have gone on the big list because it impacted me as much as Jet's death from Avatar, and maybe not quite as much as Anakin and Padme in episode 3, but it was definitely like a close right there next, like right beneath the Revenge of the Sith. Growing up, this like shattered me. It was one of those where I was in denial and kept wanting a happy ending, and it kind of ended bittersweet because later on Rose dies in her sleep and kind of goes back to him in the Titanic. But it's still just like as a kid, you're watching that, or a teen, preteen, whatever I was, and you're just kind of watching that, wanting it to end happy and stuff, and wanting them to have gotten off the boat together and Jack to survive, and there was room on the door, and you know, all the stuff. And so Jack's death on Titanic, it's still really sad. I think I'm over it, but like maybe that's why it's not on the list compared to the other ones, because I think I've like mourned him and I'm kind of over it, but it's still just sad, and I watch it and I'll still get sad and everything. So, and like, I'll never let go, Jack, I promise. And just like, it's so sad. So next up in the honorable mentions is technically 2 and 1, but they're both in the same book. So Keeley from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, but I'm talking about the movies because I haven't read the books. Sorry, please don't judge me. I'm intending to at some point. Also Thorin's death. And again, I don't know if they actually die in the book or not. I'm talking about the movie specifically. I did enjoy the movies. Again, I haven't read the books. My husband always gets mad because he hates the movies. Anyways, but both of these deaths broke me. I actually really enjoyed the romance that they added between Keeley and Tariel, even though I know Tariel, I don't think she's a character in the books and didn't exist. So his death was really tragic because you kind of wanted them to be together. And then Thorin's was as well, because I didn't expect either one of them to die, and you kind of just want them to live. Sorry, my air conditioner's on, so the buzzing you may hear is from that. I will be really quick. This is Editing Joanna here. I just wanted to, I realized I forgot one of the most important ones. So in my honorable mentions, The Patriot is going to have spoilers, so click away if you don't want spoilers. So The Patriot with Mel Gibson in it. It was from the 90s, I believe. I grew up with this movie, and toward the end, the main guy's, Mel Gibson's basically his son, Gabriel, played by Heath Ledger. When Gabriel died, I was so young. Like, we saw this when it first came out in theaters, and that was the very first character death that I actually ever saw on screen. And so it was the first character death that really that impacted me emotionally. Earlier in the movie, another one of the brothers, Thomas, dies, and it's really sad, and they lose their home and everything, but I really loved Gabriel's character. I had a crush on him when I was a little girl growing up. And it really impacted me, so that stayed with me all these years, and I will never forget that. And then later on as an adult, you grow up and keep watching the movie, and you realize he was 18 when he first joined the war. He was just a young man who had lost his wife. The burning of the church was so tragic. That scene is one of the most emotional scenes still to this day in film history, in my opinion. And he was just upset and angry, and he ran off, you know, there's a term I'm thinking of, but I don't want to say that on here, but he ran off like recklessly, not thinking of the consequences, and got himself killed. And you can see that there were so many things that could have been done to prevent his death. And then the tragedy that you wanted him to see the end of the movie where America wins, you know, her independence basically, and he didn't. And it's still so tragic and sad and stuff. So I wanted to mention that, honorable mention. Anyways, back to the video. Hey guys, so this is editing Joanna again. I realized I forgot some really important deaths in the honorable mention section, so this is going to spoil things for the TV show Reign. If you haven't watched it, don't want spoilers, then click away. So another death that like really, like for the honorable mentions, it like utterly devastated me was the TV show Reign. It's a historical romance taken from the real life story of Mary Stuart when she was in France, and then Francis, the Prince of France at the time, in the 1580 something, in the 1500s. Okay, so it's a romance, and they fought, and like Mary and Francis had this like amazing romance together, which I'll probably, if I do the romance ranking video, I'm excited they'll be in it. But they went through so much together, and there was a subplot of like potentially Francis dying, and then he died. So but the weird thing was, it was like he was sick, and so several episodes during that season, it was like his sickness was getting worse, so we thought he was going to die. They saved him from the sickness, so then we had got happy again, and we were so excited he was going to live. And then all of a sudden he gets into this fight and dies anyway. So it was like, and there was more to it than that, but like there was back and forth where we thought he was going to die. We were really sad. We were hoping they would save him, and then they did save him, but then we thought he was going to die again, but then it's okay. And then he ended up dying anyway. It was just like, and then when he actually died, like it was one of those things where like you felt his absence in the show, because they did like, I think 2 more seasons after that and finished up that season without him. And it was like you felt the absence of Francis's character in the show, and that made you mourn his character even more. So I just wanted to shout that out as well, because I can't just not mention that. So hopefully there won't be any more that I think of in the meantime. So a couple more honorable mentions. Assassin's Creed 3, I'm actually talking about the video game. I don't really remember the book. I did read this book at one point a long time ago. I don't remember it, but I'm holding up the book because they do have book versions of the series. So Assassin's Creed 3, it takes place in Revolutionary War, and Connor, his father, is actually a Templar and his enemy. And you get to play through the Revolutionary War. The only reason why I'm talking about the plot on this one is because it's more obscure, so you guys probably haven't seen or heard this one at all. But so his father is his enemy, and throughout the game you kind of have encounters with him, and at some point you kind of like interact with him and have to team up because you're like you're temporarily, your goals are temporarily aligned, and you're kind of hoping he can persuade his father, but you also know that Haytham, his dad, is too set in his ways as a Templar. And for reference, the Assassin's Creed franchise are video games that then have novelizations afterward. So, and also for reference, it's like the war between the Assassins and the Templars. There are secret societies existing all throughout history, and the Templars are the bad guys. I will fight on that hill. The Templars are the bad guys. Anyways, and so you know that like it's not going to end well, even though you're hoping for like a Haytham redemption situation. So the final, you get to the boss with Haytham and you're fighting him, and you end up killing him, and it like you're playing the character, and it does the final cutscene where they talk and he dies. And I remember like I didn't mourn Haytham because he was a jerk who kind of deserved to die, but you mourn like the fact that he didn't get redeemed, and also the final things that he says to Connor is like so horrible. If I can find the clip, I'll put it here. But like it was just so sad, because you're like, you wanted him to get redeemed, and Connor had to kill his own father, and it broke him apart. Like it seemed like it was really impactful to him and impactful for you, because you were hoping for a redemption that you never got. And then the fact that he had to die so bitterly, like with this last horrible line that just, you're like, couldn't you have like told your son you loved him or something? Like, oh, horrible. So this one actually probably deserves to be number 9 on the list, like above Fourth Wing and above Poppy. Actually, I would almost put this like Poppy Karaoke, like the Keshiro from Poppy Karaoke, above this one, and put this one as number 7 and make the list 9. But this next one is from the TV show C, from Apple. I think it's like Apple. Baba Voss, played by I want to call him Khal Drogo, but that's not right. Jason Momoa. It actually like was really fascinating to me, because it's like future Earth, but everybody is blind, and it's like to see is actually seen as like this like otherworldly power that's like dangerous. And so it's really epic, and we fall in love with Baba Voss's character. I stand with Baba Voss. If you know, you know. And so it's like he fights and he fights and he fights and he fights, and he's trying to protect his family, and like all this drama and all this stuff, and big epic fight at the end, and a boss fight, and he's trying to fight everything, and he's always protected his family, and it's like I think they're like about to lose, and I can't remember the details, but I did not want him to die. Like this made me, I was like mad. Like, why did they have to kill him off? And the bad guys are converging, and he's running to like this thing, and it's like a pile of like bombs essentially. And so he takes his big weapon and he hits them, and it blows him up and blows up all of the bad guys, and like saves the day. Like he saved everybody. And the ending kind of dragged on a little too much, but you get to see his wife like mourning him at that spot. And that hit really hard because like, and the fact that afterward they're able to kind of like make the world a better place. Like I wanted Baba to be alive to see that, because the thing is, he was a man of war who always wanted to be at peace. And that's the tragic thing about his story and this whole thing, is because he had to fight to protect his family, and he was more than willing to do that. He was brutal. And I love the man. He is like the epitome of like a male character that I love, just for reference. In case any of you guys are curious. But he deep inside, he always wanted to like just go live in the woods and like provide for his family and like not actually have to fight anybody and finally have a peaceful life. And he wanted that so bad. And he kind of kept getting dragged into this stuff, and like his wife wanting to like rule the kingdom and like take it back and like, you know, from her sister, I think, and like make it a better place and stuff. And so he was willing to stay there and protect his family because, you know, that's what he does. And so the fact that he died and never got to have that peace that he always wanted, but he brought it for everybody else. It's poetic and it's beautiful and it's tragic and I don't like it. And I miss Baba Voss and I love Baba Voss. Whew. Okay, so last but not least, and this is without spoilers, so I will not be spoiling the story for you, is my own book, Survivor. So there's a handful of deaths in this book that rips my heart out to write and read again. And when I was editing, I cried in the editing. Like I actually vlogged the process and I actually cried. So it'll rip your heart out. I'm not over it. I don't think you will get over it either. If you know, you know. I'm the author and I'm still considering alternate endings for some of these characters. It's brutal. But if you love having your heart ripped out and destroy, like your soul destroyed and where no one is safe and stuff like that, then you'll love Survivor. So you may need to grab some tissues because you're going to need them. Definitely get some popcorn or your snack of choice and cuddle with one of your pets. If you don't have a pet, then you can use a pillow. Your drink of choice, whether coffee or tea. I prefer tea to coffee, but I understand you coffee drinkers need it. And check it out. So the link will be in the description below for the Kickstarter. Check it out. It's a good book. You're going to love it. What character deaths destroyed you and ripped your heart out? Let us know in the comments below. But if you're going to spoil anything, please give us a warning beforehand because we may not have seen it or read it or whatever. Which ones did you agree with or disagree with? Let us all know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you liked this video, then check out how I did a video tutorial about how to write emotional scenes and how to make them sadder. So check that out if you really want to know how to actually be the one that rips out your readers' hearts, because that will explain how. So check it out. You don't want to miss it.